Okay, we're live. Welcome back for our live stream with the relationship series. Please don't forget before we start to hit the like button, notification bell, and subscribe to our channel. This just helps us further grow our channel, and it'll be consistent with you to let you know when we are actually airing live and producing some content. So today's topic, we are talking about letting go. And I'll let Sam dive into a little bit better, as this was kind of his take on this week's topic. I definitely have a lot of things to input for sure. But yeah, I will let you take it away, Sam.
Awesome. So I wanted to start off with some stats about holding on to the past. And there was a study at Emory University. And one of the things that they came up with, people usually tend to have higher blood pressure and they're more likely to die of heart disease. And another negative impact is it affects your metabolism, your immune response, and your organ function.
Mhm.
And it could also create higher risks of anxiety and depression. So why do I want to start off with that? I think we're just naturally wired to hold on to things to protect ourselves. It's just the way our brains are designed. But what we don't realize is all the psychological and physical issues that it's actually causing in the present day and could potentially cause us in the future. So the whole thing that, reason why I wanted to bring this up is, I think everybody struggles with this.
Mhm.
Maybe, and I think even more prominently in relationships, have you been cheated on? You know, was your partner abusive physically, emotionally, and mentally? Maybe you had a horrible upbringing. You have issues with trust, and you're bringing something that happened to you from relationship, from people that brought you into this world, and now you're bringing it to someone that had absolutely nothing to do with anything about that. And you have problems with letting go. You have problems with staying present. You have problems with trusting.
Mhm.
You're very good at holding on to anger and resentment. And so I really wanted to do this because I think life is so precious. And I mean, Kobe Bryant just passed away at the age of 41 with his 13-year-old daughter. And I think, that's very striking because he's a celebrity. He was a person of influence and he did really do a lot of great things. But I think equally it holds account to all of us that life is precious. And so if we can live 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 year in a place where we no longer hold on to the past and learn to live more in the present and to create a future by being who we need to be today, then I think that's really at the forefront here. And Nelson Mandela had a really good quote, and it goes as follows: anger and resentment is like drinking your own poison and expecting your enemy to die. Rule number one, it's going to hurt you the most.
Mhm.
It usually doesn't hurt the person you're holding on to. And secondly, it will affect your family, your children, and everything else that's close to you, including your future goals and dreams and desires.
Mhm. Yeah, they say, I was listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer today, and he was saying it's not the bite of the snake that will kill you, because no one can die from a bite from a snake. It's the venom. So, and the analogy is the venom essentially is replicated of what you're holding on to, right? Because it can slowly, internally and externally, have some detrimental effects to you and to the people around you. And there's this whole notion of letting go. So when you hold on to things, they essentially say that you are holding on to your past. So you're living in a very depressed state. But when you're worried about controlling and not letting those events happen to you again because you're so consumed by the emotion that was attached to it, you're living in the future. So I think the whole thing today really is truly to help people understand which way are they living? How has it been encompassing their day-to-day life? Has it been serving them? And what is it that they truly want to do? Do they want to let go? Or because they also say resentment is the only thing that resentment does, and what you hold on to doesn't affect anybody else but yourself. Nobody else. You think that the feelings that you are internally holding on to are an outward look of people pitying you or, feeling sorry for you, but it truthfully is has the only effect, and the effect is on you, in and out, through and through. And we are all guilty of it, but it's to the point where it's like, how long do you want to stay in that place? Because I think that we all go through traumatic events where we hold on to certain emotions, but it's like, how long do you want to stay there? I think the power
Yeah.
I think the power truthfully is, how are you going to work through it, right?
I think there's, and this is an analogy that I use. Your past shouldn't use you. Your past should always serve you.
Yeah.
So it's really there as a tool of, I've suffered in the past. These are the things that have happened to me that I can't change, but how can I use it as a tool to serve me today? And what do I mean by that? I mean, really, you can kind of take things that have happened in the past and the things that you might fear the most.
Hmm.
And a lot of the times, whether you're a spiritual person, whatever it is that you believe, I personally believe that sometimes in life, the things of the past will repeat again in the future until you complete the
Hmm.
learning.
Hmm.
And so sometimes people often wonder, why do I keep getting into the relationships with these same type of people? Well, I often say is, well, you haven't completed the learning. You're still repeating the same process of how you're evaluating your beliefs about it, what you're valuing, what you hold dear to your heart, the things that you think that you deserve also. So, I mean, if you really want to use the past as a tool to serve you, really take some time and just say, what am I really struggling with? Why do I continue to keep holding on to these things? And why do they keep having so much presence?
Yeah.
Well, it's your intuition saying you haven't completed some sort of learning so you can become more. I literally just coached somebody who did something really, really challenging. And they were so uncomfortable and they had so much to lose when it came to family. But from a spiritual perspective, they had so much to gain as an individual. And so they had to make a choice. And I think we're always at that crossroad in life, which is, I really know what to do to stop repeating these things. But in the process of that, what do I need to change?
Hmm.
Who do I need to become? And human beings do not like change. The only change that we like is the change that's comfortable,
Right.
right? So what is something, let's use hypothetically here. Let's say you're someone who's been in relationships where you're continually getting cheated on, whether male or female. What are some takeaway things that they can use? Number one, not only to make some acknowledgement of why these things continue to happen. Maybe it's something they struggle with, they believe about themselves, some things they might believe that they deserve of a life. Maybe it was, something that they saw in their parents' relationship, whatever it might be. How can they take that experience, these things that they're struggling with, that continue to keep holding on to the past, and the anxiety, the depression, not living in the present, fearing the past is going to happen again? How do
Hmm.
they move forward from that?
I think, truthfully, if you're in a situation that has created, that traumatic part of you, or, that anxious brain, it's understanding the event that has occurred or events that occur. And it's understanding what power you have within those events, because some part of you is letting your power go and accepting a certain behavior. And it's understanding, okay, it's happening for me, not to me. So, how am I going to exchange the energy of understanding what it is that I need to do differently? I think what the true power is, when it's knowing that if a situation like this arises ever again in someone's life, what are you going to do differently as a response? Because I mean, you can create a cyclical event where it keeps happening, and people are going to continue to come in your life as lessons, and um, maybe treat you unfairly, or present you with the same type of events. But the lesson is in what you're going to do differently next time. Not play the victim card, but empower yourself from the lesson to understand, where do you go from here? Because there's always going to be people in work, relationships, and whatever part of your life that are always going to try and test you. And they're just tests. to your moral compass, truthfully. And it's like in that moral compass, what you know is right and true for you. What are you going to do differently so that some of these events can stop being so cyclical in your life? And it's the response, right? It's cause and effect. And I'm not saying that you welcome them in your life, but sometimes they happen, and it's what you do with those events and with those lessons that create those cyclical cycles, right? So I know for me, it's definitely been a lot of the times I've noticed that I repeat the same decision making factors, which get me the same results. And I knew for myself that if I don't like what I'm getting, then I need to change what I'm doing. I can't change the person's behavior and how they're going to treat me, but I can change my response and my ability to be different, if that makes sense.
No, of course it does.
Yeah.
And I think I'll use myself for an example. And maybe some of you who are watching this or will watch this maybe struggle with anxiety. And some people always wonder, like, how do you struggle? You're such a happy person all the time. And
Yeah.
well, I think really what it comes down to is sometimes you're holding on to the past and maybe with anxiety because you're a people pleaser.
Hmm.
And so you're afraid of making those same mistakes, those same vulnerabilities, those same things that have happened in the past you don't want to happen in the future, but you're still operating in the same sort of mind process, belief system, the things that you value. Well,
Yeah.
really what you need to do if you want to turn this around, and what I've done is, what do I want from this so that I stop living in the past and start creating
Exactly.
more happiness in the present,
100%.
more joy in the future? How do
Hmm.
I feel free from, really it's the mind, because
Hmm.
our minds are just created pretty much for protective mechanisms to keep us safe. So how do you get out of that old reptilian brain where in today's society a lot of the threats don't exist, and really and truly the majority of them are just imagined?
Hmm.
So how do we get rid of these imaginary threats, and why do they seem so like crushing at times and disabling? Is because there's a few things. We're afraid of loss, we're afraid of hurt, and the ultimate pain is not being loved.
Hmm.
But if you're operating in that sort of mind processes, you're not operating in a place of abundance, and you will
No.
forever suffer, right? So how do you get through this? You got to change your focus. And what does that mean? So what you got to do is, what is the result that I want to seek by making these changes, right? What do I want to gain in my life? Who do I want to become? What do I want to be experiencing more? There's a lot of people, actually, someone I was speaking with who had a relationship and they lost their husband at a very young age.
Mm.
And they're afraid of experiencing that same loss again. So they're afraid to fall in love again, get back into a relationship because they want to experience that hurt anymore.
Mhm.
But loneliness is the ultimate killer.
Mhm.
Putting certainty above uncertainty, which is allowing a lot of things you're not comfortable with in your life, is the death of a human being in the spirit. So for some of you who are watching this, I challenge you to do this. If you are struggling with holding on to the past, the first thing you need to do is start being mindful of the fact that, you know, what am I gaining by holding on to this? What am I gaining by holding on to trying to protect myself? What am I gaining by holding on to not putting myself in a situation where these vulnerabilities might take place again?
Mhm.
And I really want you to scale in your mind by having this mindset. How much has it made me grow? How much more joy and happiness am I experiencing? How much more love do I have in my life? And I think until you place that reality into some sort of thing that you can see in some sort of a format, it really makes it more real in your mind to say, okay, you know what? It's time for change. And that really hit me home. And a lot of things that I do when it comes to when my mind starts going off about things that have happened in the past, and I know already what's happening, my mind just, if I wake up in the morning and I've had a night where some stuff has come up in the past and I wake, it ruins my whole day.
Yeah.
I'm in a bad state. I'm in a lousy mindset. It affects my physiology, the way I'm going to perform. It affects the way I come home and my communication with my kids, my wife, and my day. And
Mhm.
it's a shit show.
Yeah.
So what do you need to do? You got to get control of your mind first and foremost. And how do you do that? You can start with some meditation. Start focusing on some breathing. So what I do is I'll I'll take some pause in some moments and say, you know what, I'm not going to focus on what's going on in my head and what's happened in the past. I just want to focus on feeling the presence. So I'll start off with some meditation, with some breathing. And then what I'll do is I'll start putting into context these things that I'm thinking about. How long ago did they happen?
Mhm.
And so when you could put in that context by measuring time, then you can start to read it really has no bearing on today.
Yeah.
Right? And so what you can do from here, I want to take the past as a learning tool. I don't need to forget it because it's important. That's why it did happen. I don't want to repeat being the same person and putting myself in that vulnerable state to find the same person or that same sort of experience. But what do I need to do to move forward from here so that I can let go and
Mhm.
experience life fully?
Yeah. And I think truthfully, there's a constant evaluation of, what is bringing me joy at the moment? What is bringing me happiness? What is making me unhappy? What isn't bringing me joy? And it's evaluating how much of those things are actually on a continuum on a daily basis. Is it majority versus minority? Is it you versus someone else? Is it what you're taking in on a daily basis, what you're listening to, what you're surrounding yourself with? Because that's a lot in part of letting go, because sometimes what we surround ourselves with is what we become. So if you're surrounding yourself with the negativity and the drought and like the people that, are in the same boat as you, most likely you might have the same mind frame. But if you're having someone as a partner or, a friend who is determined to help build you up and be the best version who you can be, most likely you will change your mindset quickly. So you also have to evaluate what it is around you that are the contributing factors, because that's huge. It's so, so huge when you're trying to change and then everything around you is the same, if that makes sense as well. Like, they say you become the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most. Well, you have to evaluate that on a constant basis. What is it that you're hearing? What is it that you are, being surrounded with that could possibly contribute to this mind frame, to this anxious brain, to this inability to let go? Is someone actually kind of feeding that tool for you, which is not helping your situation at all? You have to evaluate these things, but you have to want it for yourself first and foremost. Change doesn't
Yeah.
occur between, you know, X, Y, and Z. It occurs with you in evaluating everything, your circumstances, your internal and external, environments. But yeah, no, I agree with you 100%.
And I think the majority of people can agree to this, even from like a communication style standpoint. I was a master at always bringing up things that have happened in the past
Yeah.
when it comes to like the same problem repeating.
Yeah.
And it does nothing but open up a bag of worms. And you're literally gearing your partner up for destruction in that conversation. So if you're someone that's watching this and you are consistently bringing up past things that person did and how they relate to this current time, you really need to stop doing that. Because if you want to move forward, maybe you can use this as a way to serve you. And so here's what I do, and maybe this will help you. When I have an issue that comes up today, I'll say, you know what, this is a situation that's very similar to something that's happened in the past. However, I don't want to argue. I don't want to get mad. I just want to find a way to move through this to solve it. So we can spend less time arguing, more time understanding, and more time just being with one another, doing the things that we enjoy. And what you're doing is you're setting the intent. So what does it have to do with letting go? Letting go can come in different formats when it comes to relationships, right? But when it comes to communication, you're constantly making that person eat the same things over and over again that they did in the past.
Yeah.
You're not only going to build up anger and resentment in yourself, they're going to become more angry, resentful towards you, and that might end the relationship.
Mhm.
That make them might want to do things that maybe they wouldn't ordinarily do if you weren't making them feel that way.
Yeah.
And it's just not something you should do. It's not a healthy way to communicate to help to overcome things of the past. Tell them that you need them to help you to overcome these things. You don't want to keep bringing them up. How can you work together to overcome this?
Mhm.
Use it as a tool to fuel you to come together, to connect in a way to create better communication styles.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, that's a big one, because I was at fault for that for many, many, many times. And you're almost revving up your engine to fifth gear
Mhm.
before you're ready to communicate to the person. You've already stacked 1,000 things that have happened in the past that really have no bearing what's happened today. The only thing that matters is who you're going to choose to be in this moment right now and how to deal with this. So, one, the person understands how much pain you're experiencing when these things happen. And two, how you can both help one another to move through this to create a better relationship.
Mhm. Oh, 100%.
And once again, Gina's frozen. Maybe some of you are watching this and you are struggling with having a partner who does this often, or maybe you struggle with this. Really, what I want you to evaluate here is, what are you gaining by choosing this method? There's really nothing to gain. You don't come out feeling like you've solved a problem. You don't feel more connected. You don't feel happier. And nor do you make the other person feel any better. At the end of the day, we are all imperfect. And to point out continuously our imperfections is going to have no merit on or any benefit to you at all. So I really challenge you, if you oh, there you are.
I don't know what
You
happens.
keep you keep you keep you keep you keep coming and going.
I don't know what's going on.
But anyway, no, I was just telling people, I was challenging people to really just wake up and find a better way. And really what it comes down to is, this is something that's learned. Like, if you learned this from your parents or someone who's been a mentor, I want you to evaluate what their relationship is like right now
Right.
and what it was like in the past. Is it any better today? So who did you model to learn these types of communication styles? To holding on to the past by making people eat crow every time something happens very similar to the past.
Mhm.
And what are you gaining from this? What have they gained? And if that model doesn't work, it's time for a change.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't serve anybody, to be quite honest. And
No, it
it's
doesn't.
it's moving forward with a lot of things though. Like, I mean, we particularly talk about like intimate relationships, but it's any relationship. There's so many people I know that and like myself too, where if someone did something that it wasn't agreeable for me, I had no problem at one point just not having them in my life. And I'm not saying you have to have them in your life, but you have to understand what it is you're actually letting go, because holding on to resentment and all that, those types of negative emotions, truthfully, it impacts nobody but yourself. Nobody but yourself. And it's not to say that there's some people that shouldn't be in your inner circle anymore, because sometimes you do have to let people go. But it's also evaluating what it is you need to let go within yourself, just kind of to have that further self development, because there are patterns that occur a lot, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the person that is around you. It has to do with yourself. And that's the introspection. That's where a lot of the work lies, is when you can actually really notice and do the work that needs to be done for you and only you, to be quite honest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I truly feel that letting go is almost like allowing your soul and your spirit to be free,
Hmm.
your true you.
Hmm.
You really don't discover your capabilities when you're constantly in anger, resentment, and stuck in anxiety, where you're always fearing the past
Yeah.
occurring in the present or the future. It may, or it may not. But the only thing that matters is, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
Who are you going to choose to be?
Hmm.
And how will you grow from this? How will you attract the right people in your life? Maybe this time you stand your ground. Maybe you make the right changes. Maybe you communicate to the person in a way you haven't normally, and it will feel uncomfortable. I can assure you that, because change isn't comfortable.
Hmm.
But the things that you gain after continually practicing will outweigh anything
Yeah.
than choosing to stay where you are today.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. But I think there's only two options here. It's either you hold on to it or you let it go. And one or the other doesn't serve anybody but yourself. And it has a lot of detrimental effects, truthfully. And it's not to say that you, by letting go, means you have to have these people in your life. It just means you're freeing yourself of an emotion, of an impactful feeling that is only hurting yourself. Only. It doesn't affect anybody else, this resentment. And in fact, sometimes by holding on to and expressing these types of feelings pushes people away. If anything, friends, intimate lovers, like it just pushes people away. Because nobody wants to hear a broken record, to be quite honest. And that broken record needs to be fixed, and that fixing is you.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to destroy intimacy,
Hmm.
hold on to the past.
Hmm.
You want to destroy connection in your relationship, hold on to the past.
Hmm.
If you want to grow, you got to let it go. But don't let it go unless you're willing to learn from it.
I agree, 100%. And I
Right?
think that's a great finale for
Yeah,
this episode.
I agree.
That was great. So on that note, I think that this will conclude today's episode of the relationship series, always talking about the matters of the heart and mind. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for our future episodes to come. On that note, we will see you guys later.
Keep smiling.